Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. Let's be going over some trade targets in Week 5. These are guys that I think are pretty undervalued relative to what they've done over the course of the season and what I expect them to do going forward, especially. These are guys that I think you can get a lot cheaper than what they're worth, and they're guys that I'm personally making efforts to trade for, so hopefully you guys find these useful. I'm generally trying to give you guys a couple players to talk about at each position. Of course, there might be more players I could talk about. Obviously, it's tough to necessarily say just go trade for a specific player. It's a lot more nuanced than that. You got to understand how you can go about, addressing roster needs between you and your league mates, finding, what makes sense between you and your partners. But these are guys that I think are just generally underrated and guys that are worth targeting here. So hopefully you guys find this useful. Of course, as always, if you guys do have any specific trade questions, let me know in the comments below. I love seeing what sort of trades you guys are cooking up. Love seeing if I can help you out, give you guys some advice there. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions there. And then if there's any players you think I left out or any disagreements, let me know in the comments as well. So yeah, that being said, let's get started with the first quarterback here. So we'll start things off with Kyler Murray, who did have obviously a down week in Week 4. He was missing Trey McBride, though, and I don't want to make too many excuses for him here. They were obviously playing a really brutal defense, or a really bad defense against the Washington Commanders. This should have been a game environment in which Kyler Murray absolutely just dominated, and their defense gave up 42 points. Makes it really tough to necessarily excuse what Kyler Murray and this offense did in this game. Just really felt like the Cardinals got outcoached in this one. They had a really great game strips, or really great scripted drive to open the game. Went down, scored a touchdown. It was great to see Marvin Harrison get in again. Then it just seemed like things fell apart. The Cardinals couldn't get any stops on defense either, and the Commanders, as great as they are on offense, they're not necessarily getting huge chunk plays. So when you can't stop the Commanders, it's really frustrating if you have players in the other team because they're just going to have these long, sustained drives, and the Cardinals just couldn't really stay on the field. I believe Kyler was 16 for 22 as a passer. That's not a bad day. He had a fumble by one of his receivers. James Conner stole a touchdown that could have easily gone towards Kyler. It's just a really weird game. I do still feel like Kyler's a top 7 quarterback the rest of the season, and it's really easy for people to be frustrated with him. He's obviously only had really one good game so far to date, so there's reasons to be concerned there. Does play San Francisco, Green Bay, the Chargers, and then Miami over the next month. Should be a lot of fun games in there. Obviously, San Francisco's defense not necessarily as fantastic. They will put up a lot of points though, and they'll do it quickly. Same thing with the Green Bay Packers. A lot of shootout potential there. Chargers, a bit of a boring game, but their defense isn't necessarily fantastic. And then Miami, hopefully we get Tua back before then. He should be slotted to make that game a shootout as well. So I think this defense in Arizona, we're seeing what we want to see. We're seeing them give up a lot of points, which is obviously good. We just want them to do it faster as they get off the field. I think things will be okay. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are just going to be maybe a sneaky bad matchup going forward. The way they're playing, it just might be hard to get on the field if you're the other team. So you might have limited opportunities against the Commanders going forward. But I think with McBride back, with these upcoming matchups, I think Kyler is going to be great going forward. And the last quarterback I'll talk about here is going to be Jalen Hurts, and I think the bye is just coming at a perfect time here for Hurts. He's going to get A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith back in Week 6, and it's going to be huge for him. He should be a top 3 quarterback the rest of the way. We've seen everything we really would want to see out of Jalen Hurts to really see why he's going to be a top 3 quarterback. It's why we drafted him. He's still rushing the ball. They're still utilizing the tush push. The defense in Philadelphia is absolutely awful. Everything's shaping up for them to need to score a lot of points here, and the issue is he just hasn't had his top pass catchers, especially this last week, obviously missing both Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. It's really tough. You take the best of the top 2 targets for any quarterback away, it's going to be really tough to put up high-end fantasy numbers. And the good news is that Jalen Hurts is still a top 10 quarterback so far this season. It's really great knowing that literally is his floor. It can't get any worse than that for Jalen Hurts. And I think people are really frustrated with him right now. I know I am. I've got him in 2 of my leagues. It's been a little bit frustrating rostering him. You drafted him, obviously, with the expectation that he would do a lot more for you, and he hasn't really done that. I've got the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown stack in a league. That's obviously been brutal. So there's a lot of reasons you can be upset about Jalen Hurts, but after the bye, things do shape up nicely. They get Cleveland, who have not actually been very good against opposing passers. The Giants, one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. Cincinnati, who are going to put up a lot of points and also have a really bad defense. And then Jacksonville, who look to be the best defense to target right now with just how many points they're giving up to opposing passers. I do think that Jalen Hurts is the guy that could be a top 3 quarterback for you the rest of the way, and he's never going to be cheaper than this if you need a quarterback, which a lot of us do because things have been rough so far this season. Hurts is your best shot and maybe your last shot to get a top 3 guy. It's really tough to get guys of his caliber. It's like Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and maybe Jaden Daniels at this point are the 3 most valuable quarterbacks for fantasy. I don't think you're going to have a better buy window than that. I think Jalen Hurts absolutely needs to be a target for everybody at this point in time. Moving on to the running back position, I'm going to start things off with Bijan Robinson. I think people are just really freaking out about the usage and involvement of Tyler Algier this last week. Obviously, it was really disappointing to see what we would have hoped would be a really great game here for Bijan, just not turn into that. A lot of reasons we can be sort of making excuses here for Bijan, though. He popped up on the injury report on Friday with a hamstring injury. Did suit up in this one, but when you've got a guy dealing with an injury, it just makes sense when you have a talented backup. You're going to involve that backup a little bit more, lighten the load for Bijan Robinson. It's not like the usage for Bijan before last week was concerning. We saw a ton of Bijan. He was like a 90% opportunity guy. Or not quite, but like the dude was getting 20 plus touches a week before that. He's a guy that's obviously a focal point of this offense. He is the drumbeat of this offense, and just he was dealing with an injury. They had 2 defensive touchdowns, a muff punt scored for a touchdown and a pick six. That takes away a lot of opportunities for the offense for Atlanta as well. I think that in general, people are just really frustrated. You know, they've got PTSD from last year where we saw Bijan just not get involved and used the way you'd want him to. More Tyler Algier than we were hoping, and people are just having flashbacks to that. Bad touchdown luck so far as well, so his overall season-long numbers are not what people would have hoped. But I think he's actually just criminally undervalued right now. In one of my leagues, I traded Devon Achane for him. I would make that trade everywhere. I think you guys could maybe make that trade too. I think that's the kind of value that Bijan has right now around the league, and I think that in general, I do expect Bijan to be a lot better than that. I'd prefer Bijan to Breece Hall going forward. I think it's a case to be made that Bijan's probably, I mean, he's probably still like he's still a top 5 running back for me for sure. I guess it'd be like Saquon, Derrick Henry maybe, Kyron, like maybe Jahmyr Gibbs. But he's right in that conversation for still being a top 5 running back. And whenever you can get guys of that caliber at a potential discount, it makes a lot of sense to at least kick the tires on it. The last running back we'll talk about here is going to be Josh Jacobs, and I do get the usage is a little bit concerning here with Emmanuel Wilson. We've seen them effectively split touches each of the last 2 weeks, but it just really hasn't been a normal game script for the Packers just yet. At least over the last couple of weeks, last week we saw the Packers get down 28-7 really early. Emmanuel Wilson's going to be involved. He's a talented player. He's a decent pass catcher, but he's not going to take over for Josh Jacobs. This was always going to be a timeshare in this backfield. We knew that coming into the season, but Josh Jacobs is still the lead back in this backfield. There's no reason to be really concerned about that. Beyond that, this offense is just going to be absolutely awesome. Jordan Love coming back. Obviously had to shake off the rust a little bit, threw a couple picks early on, but after that looked absolutely great. This offense is going to put up a ton of points over the next 5 weeks. Let's look at the next 5 matchups here. We got the Rams, the Cardinals, the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Lions. Those are 5 straight bad defenses, teams that also can put up a lot of points. We could easily see a month plus of shootouts out of Green Bay, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for Josh Jacobs to find the end zone. He has yet to score a touchdown in 2024, so obviously that's making his season-long numbers not look like what you would have wanted them to. So I do still view him as like a high-end running back too. People are generally upset with him. They probably drafted him to be their RB2 or 3 anyway. They potentially had alternatives. They don't necessarily need him on their roster, and a lot of us need high-end running back production or even any running back production at all. So I think Josh Jacobs is absolutely someone we should be targeting as a guy that I think can still be a fringe RB1, RB2 for us the rest of the way, and he's not going to cost you that right now with how he's done so far this season. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I want to highlight Zay Flowers, who I get he's obviously not going to perform potentially to the level that people drafted him to be, but I think that at this point he's a guy that people are maybe even considering as a drop candidate. I think that's definitely a significant overreaction here to what we've seen so far. The Ravens have thrown the ball 15 and 18 times over each of the last 2 weeks for a total of 25 completions over the last 2 games. For some context, the lowest pass attempts per game in the NFL last season was 29. The Ravens are averaging 16.5 over the last 2 weeks. That's obviously not sustainable. They completed 26 passes in week 1, 21 in week 2. They're going to play some good offenses going forward. They play Cincinnati here in week 5. That's going to be a team that should score and really necessitate that this Ravens offense needs to do more than they did last week. It's just tough in general. If Derrick Henry's cooking the way he was, if he just busts off a 90-yard touchdown to start the game, it takes away a lot of opportunities for the pass catchers in that game. The Ravens only completed 5 passes to non-running backs in week 4, so it was just impossible in that game environment for Zay Flowers to actually put up a good game, and they were able to run the ball and establish it like that for 2 straight weeks, which is just not necessarily going to be the norm. I think the Ravens do want to run the ball very effectively, and they're going to be able to do that, but like I said, even if they can do that, they're still going to throw the ball closer to 30 times per game than what they've done over the last 2 weeks. That put them near the bottom of the NFL, and that'd still be way more than what we've seen over the last 2 weeks. So Zay Flowers is still probably the number 1 target in this offense. He's a talented player. They're going to manufacture touches for him. I think especially in full PPR, he's a solid wide receiver 3. Obviously hasn't done a whole lot for us so far this season, but he's a solid asset. He's going to be effectively free for you right now, and it's at least worth kicking the tires on him if you do need some wide receiver help. Last wide receiver we'll talk about is going to be Calvin Ridley, and I get the last 2 weeks have been absolutely awful, and I could honestly see Calvin Ridley getting dropped in some leagues with the bye this week, and is effectively why he's a buy low target for me. He still has flashed at times so far this season. He had a decent week 1, all things considered, given the matchup, had an awesome week 2. 2 straight bad games obviously is concerning, but there's going to be some ups and downs in general in this offense. The quarterback play is not going to allow Ridley to be a reliable weekly asset, but the game script in week 4 was obviously not great. The Titans just were able to put it to the Dolphins and win the game pretty easily, and I don't fully expect that to be the norm really going forward. Like, how many games are the Titans realistically going to win this season? Probably 5 or 6 maybe, so, and that's even maybe on the high end here. So there will be a lot more opportunities here for the Titans to be playing from behind. If we look at the end of the season, it's a really great stretch of matchups here. We get Minnesota, Houston, and then the last 5 weeks, this is what's really crazy. You get Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville. So Washington, fantastic matchup. Then you get 2 matchups with Jacksonville in the last month. Those are some of the best matchup. That's probably the best matchup you can have for a wide receiver right now. We just saw what Nico Collins did against them. I think Calvin Ridley's got a legitimate shot to put people on his backs over the last month of the season, and he's effectively free in drafts right now. So he's got to be someone that we look to roster. You don't even need to play him for a couple weeks, but that back half of the season I think could be really great for him. And again, he's effectively free in drafts. If he gets dropped, definitely need to go add him, and if he doesn't get dropped, at least see what you can offer for him, because you won't need to pay a lot to get him on your roster. And the only tight end I'm going to highlight is a buy low. It's really tough to get anybody to sell a producing tight end at this point, but Sam Laporta, he's got to score a touchdown in 2024, so that's the big thing driving his poor performances. We also saw him leave week 3 early with an injury. But, was able to come back, be fully healthy for week 4. That's great to see. They go into a bye in week 5 here, so he'll be even healthier come into week 6. And I think that managers are just really frustrated right now. They spent a 2nd or 3rd round pick on this guy, and he just has not done anything for them. I believe he's the tight end 13 on the season. I still do view him as a top 5 tight end the rest of the way. He's a talented player and one of the best offenses in the NFL. The touchdowns are going to come for him. He had a couple targets in the end zone this week. It just didn't turn into a touchdown. And with how bad the tight end position is, getting a good player on a good offense, it just makes a lot of sense to target him as someone that could be potentially undervalued right now. So I kick the tires on Sam Laporta. Don't pay a ton for him, but obviously we all need tight end production if you've got some depth and people are willing to bail on him. I think it makes a lot of sense to at least see what he's going to cost you. So that'll do it for the buy low targets this week. Up next, I'll be going over 5 players that I'd be looking to sell high. That video will also come out today, so highly recommend that you do take a look at that video. There will also be a start-sit video this week. I'll go over every single matchup this week, help you guys get your lineup set, go over which players should and shouldn't be in your lineups, and there will also be a Sunday morning live stream like usual, 1 hour before the games kick off, so 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to subscribe to the channel that way you don't miss any of that. It's all free. I'm going to be here all year long to help you guys win your leagues, and hopefully you guys appreciate the content and want to hop along for the ride. So yeah, if you made it this far in the video, please do give the video a thumbs up, which helps me out quite a bit. And other than that, I'll catch you next time. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.